Hi, in this video I show you how I took this far from perfect image and turned it into this. Hi, I'm Adam and welcome to First Man Photography, the channel that will help you take your photography to the next level. In this video I'm going to be using Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop, and if you haven't got them yet, they are powerhouses of photo editing. If you would like to try them out, head down to the link below where you'll get a free trial. Okay, let's get into this. Today I was sat working at my computer when I heard a helicopter buzzing outside my window just before I was planning to film a video. So I started to get a little bit annoyed, but then realised I could take that opportunity and try and capture a good photograph. So I strapped my 400mm f5.6L lens to the camera and then stuck it out the window and started taking a few shots. I'm not a big fan of aviation shots against blue sky, so I kind of waited a little bit, timed it right, and just hoped that the helicopter went into the right place to go ahead and capture my image. It's not the perfect image, but I think if we get into the computer, I can talk you through it and show you what I mean. Okay, so we go straight into Adobe Lightroom, and this is the image of the helicopter, which is going to be my final image. And it's actually far from perfect. There's a little bit of sharpness there, and the reason for that is that I wanted to get some movement in the rotor blades, and you can only do that by having a slightly slower shutter speed, where normally if you're doing bird photography, for example, with a long lens like that 400, you'd have a really high shutter speed to freeze the action. But with aviation shots, I really don't, especially with helicopters, I don't like seeing the propellers or the rotor blades frozen. So for this, I've gone for 1/50th of a second at f22, and that's lost, and because of that I'm hand holding it as well, because I'm sticking it out my window, and I've lost some sharpness across the picture, although it's still not too bad. What I have got right though is the exposure, because it's a fairly hazy day, so you've got this sort of nasty, almost the blue sky almost becomes this nasty grey colour, but it's well exposed, it's nice and flat, there's not much contrast in it at the moment, which means we've got lots of scope for editing the picture. I want to turn it into the image that I showed you at the start, and I'm going to go through that now. So as with lots of bird photography and aviation photography, you're always going to crop a little because you can't physically get any closer to the helicopter, and the composition isn't quite where I want it to be. So I'm just going to hit R on the keyboard and then just keep the same aspect ratio and just drag this down a little bit just to get a little bit closer in on the helicopter and put it in on that cross of the rule of thirds, so somewhere around there, to just keep these trees in the picture here, and then hit return and crop the shot. So I'm going to start off with a small contrast boost up to somewhere like about 20, and then I'm going to leave the highlights as it is at the moment and see what happens. I want to raise the shadows a little bit to bring out some more of the detail in the trees, particularly somewhere around, I think a little bit more than that, somewhere around 34, 35, and that looks about right to me. And then I'm looking at the histogram here, so I'm going to drag those whites up a significant amount, and that has started to do that. I think somewhere around there is about right, as it starts, just a little bit of the image just starts to hit the true white, and then I'm going to drag the blacks down as well to do the same thing in that area until they touch the edge of the histogram, which is about there. And then I want to add some saturation and vibrance to the image, because it's a nice sunny day. The helicopter's really nice and colourful, so I've got lots of green in the image as well, so I really want to enhance that. So I'm going to go up on the vibrance, and that has a big effect on the greens often, up to about there. And then I'm going to go up on the saturation as well, which will start to make that helicopter really pop to about there. Okay, I think my white balance is looking okay at the moment, so I'm going to go down to the curves panel here and just put up on a medium contrast, and that adds a little bit more to the image again for me. So because I picked the lens up really quickly, I didn't have any time to clean it, so we've got these few splodges on the screen, on the picture here, particularly because I was at f22 to get that exposure right. So just hit Q, and then you can very easily remove these spots. There's one there, and there's one there, and then there's a few little dots here which I'm also going to take out as well. Then just hit Q again to take that, come away from the spot removal tool back to the main image. So I'm still not particularly happy with the sky in this image, because when I look out my window it looked much bluer than this, but in the image, because it's going through from a distance between me and through the lens and to the helicopter, the sky has gone this hazy grey sort of colour still. So I'm going to use a little trick using the graduated filter just to pull out a bit more detail in that sky. So I'm going to select my graduated filter. I'm just going to put a little reduction on the exposure as well, as if I was using a graduated filter, and then drag that down and just put on a little bit of a filter. But I don't want to cover the helicopter too much, so I'm going to go down to around there to add that graduated filter. Just wait for the computer to catch up, and then you can see that's added a nice little graduated filter effect to the sky. I'm now going to drag the temperature down on the white balance within that graduated filter, and you can quickly start to see that the blue of the sky really starts to come out. I'm also going to add a little bit of saturation to that to enhance that effect even further. So now just unselect the graduated filter tool and you can see the result there. I now think I'm going to add a tiny little bit of exposure just to bring that image back up a little bit and really make the image shine. So somewhere around there, at just, like I say, 0.35, and that's, for me, that has made all the difference. I'm now just going to scroll down and add a little bit of noise reduction, because I always add around 20 just to really smooth that image out a little bit if you've got any noise in there. And then I'm going to remove chromatic aberration, although it's well controlled with that lens anyway. And I'm also going to enable the profile correction, because I don't want any vignetting on this nice bright image. I'm going to turn the distortion down because I don't need that correcting. I am going to add a tiny little bit of dehaze just to remove that sort of slightly hazy look that I have in that image, but only very slight because it's quite a strong effect. So somewhere around 8, and that's starting to look good. The last thing left to do is just to remove this telephone wire, which is quite annoying, and that's very easy to do, particularly because we've got a very busy foreground there. So just right click and then go to edit in and edit in Adobe Photoshop CC. So just wait a moment for Photoshop to load, and then I'm going to come down to the layers panel here and then just click on that to create a new layer. And then I'm going to click the S key to select the clone stamp tool, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on the wire and then hit Alt to select this portion of the tree, and then I'm just going to simply paint it out with my mouse, dragging all along this wire. I'm not too fussed about being massively accurate on this occasion, because this is never going to be a sort of image that I'm going to do a massive amount with other than share it online, so I don't need to be particularly accurate with my edit in this case. And then just reselect here as we're going off the page and just drawing that last bit to remove that and wait for the computer to catch up, and then hit Command 0 or Control 0 so you can see the whole image, and that's looking pretty good. And then Command Save, that will save the image and put it back into Lightroom for me, where I can then go ahead and export my image from Lightroom as I would normally. I'm pretty happy with that. It's not one I was ever expecting to get today. Like I said, it's not the perfect image, but I've taken my opportunity. I've exposed well because I'm so used to using the camera in manual mode. I played around with freezing the rotor blade as well to get the helicopter a bit sharper. It didn't quite work for me because I really wanted that movement in there, and I was happy to sacrifice a little bit of sharpness. At 1/50th of a second, you're never ever going to get a totally sharp image with that 400mm unless you're on a tripod, and I wasn't. I was hand holding, sticking it out the window, so I'm happy with the overall with that image, and I think it was worthwhile doing. And I hope I've shown that if you get the exposure right, get the key bits right in the camera, you can then go and turn it into something pretty decent in Lightroom and Photoshop. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Please give it the thumbs up if you did, and leave a comment down below to let me know if you would have done anything differently. If you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel for videos every Sunday and every Wednesday, and I'll see you on another one very soon. I'm Adam. This is First Man Photography. Out.